Hello and welcome to Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast. This time with your host, Buddy Sotelo, Esquire, Professor Evan Ginsberg, and Dr. Mike Leno. But you notice there's lots of faces here that are faces that should be familiar to you because this is a very, very special show. This is the 6th anniversary show of Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast. And we're doing something we've never done before and have all of our best co-hosts, multi-time guests, whatever you like to consider, honored alumni of Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast here tonight. And first of all, gentlemen, thank you so much for being part of not just this show, but all 321 other shows that we've had that have entertained countless numbers of people over the years. Thank you so much. I am here to personally thank you for everything you've done to make this show the success that it's been the last 6 years. So, first,
Russ,
my bow to you.
Russ, this is Russ's baby. He put all of this together. Russ and Evan started this show, and then brought me in X amount of weeks later. But Russ put this whole thing together. So kudos to Russ.
Well, it's allowed me to make friendships and stretch myself beyond where I've been for the last 6 years. And Evan and I, we were just on Bobby Salazar's podcast where we went over how we formed this show. And Evan, do you want to remind everyone how it all came to be?
Yeah, it was during COVID, and we were all trying not to blow our brains out, and we said, let's start a podcast so we have something positive to channel into. Because those were a rough couple of years, boy, those COVID years. New York was hit hard. And I had 5 friends die during that period from COVID. And so to have this weekly show, it was almost like therapy, like going to a therapist where you could go, WWE are greedy people, and you can vent. And this show really served the purpose. And once COVID ended, we just continued, and 321 shows later, here we are, and thanks to Russ, because I have 0 tech skills. So, and welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming. Sincerely appreciate it. And yeah.
If you don't mind, if we can go around the room and have you folks just give a 5-second introduction of who you are and quickly say what you were doing 6 years ago at this date. So let's start with Blair and then work our way across.
Hey everybody, it's Blair Coady with Wrestling with the 80s. I have a YouTube channel called Wrestling with the 80s, and then you can also find me on Facebook as well. Obviously, I'm focusing on old school wrestling and in my opinion, the greatest era of wrestling, the 80s. But yeah, 6 years ago, I was just preparing to join the podcasting world myself. I always say when COVID was the biggest heel in the territory. So, the fact that you guys have got 6 years under your belt, and not just that, but consistently for 6 years every week is unbelievably impressive. So kudos to you.
I missed 2 weeks when I moved. I missed 2 weeks when I moved, and that was it.
That's unreal. Unreal. So congratulations to you, and I really appreciate you inviting me on the show. I had a great time the first time I was on, and this is a phenomenal group. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
I'm still writing, shooting all around wherever I can, and I kind of prefer. I mean, the '80s were great, but '60s, '70s for me is where it's at. Territory guy through and through.
And what were you doing 6 years ago?
Trying not to get sick, and found a Hyatt hotel where I could go swim in their pool, pay to use their pool, and nobody used their little gym. That's just trying to stay healthy, stay in shape, and stay away from people at that point.
Gotcha. All right, Benny, you're next.
All right. Well, on Monday nights, you can find me doing True Crime with the Bad Girl, La Playa, and Dangerous Dave. And then on Wednesday, when it was real, at 7:30 with Nikita Brezhnikov, both on the Playa Entertainment Network. Now, 6 years ago, I had just started podcasting. Thank God, like Evan said. I mean, it's something to detract from COVID. And Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast was the very first podcast to invite me on as a guest because of my writing with pro wrestling stories. So I will forever be indebted to you guys for that.
No, we're indebted to you. You've been almost a co-host of the show several times. So, and a couple of times I had nobody that I could count on for guests. I know I can count on you, Benny, and you've made this show a fantastic show ever since you've done it for you. So, Sheldon, let's have you give your 2 cents.
Okay, well, if you asked me what I was doing 6 years ago, I think it was at the tail end of my career promoting live wrestling. That kind of came to an end because my health started to decline. I'm the founder, owner, and promoter of New England Championship Wrestling, and since then I've turned to writing books. I'm the author of 4 novels currently in print on Amazon. You can find them there, and I want to congratulate you on 6 years of this terrific podcast. It's always a great time when I come on because I'm with so many friends. And Evan's been a dear friend for many years. Mike has been a dear friend for many years. Benny has had me on 1 or 2 times, I believe, and I'm just meeting the rest of you guys. But Mark, I know, and I just want to thank you, and I hope it's many, many more years for this podcast.
And you have another 5th book. Shell's working on his 5th book.
Yeah, it'll be out this summer.
Then when it's out
the
this
last
summer,
one,
you need to come on.
It's the last one in the series. All the books are a series, and it's the last one in the series. So we're going to wrap that series up with this next book.
When you're done with that, come back on the show. We want to promote you. In fact,
I would love to. I appreciate it.
My only regret in 6 years, Sheldon, is we didn't have you on more times.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me.
You're one of the great minds of pro wrestling that I've ever talked to.
I'm very flattered that you say that. I'm recovering from open heart surgery. I had a triple bypass in December, and I'm still recovering. So I'm just about there. You know, I would say I'm about 65-70% there. And I just thank God now for every day. And
we don't want to add you the memoriam segment, which
no. I owe too. They can't kill me. I owe too much money. So that's what I told the doctor. So
one thing about Sheldon, Matt Marketplace, when did you start that newsletter? Because it was the first of its kind to bring people together on gimmicks and history
89.
and all this stuff. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then we moved to a man that I absolutely have all the highest regard for, a man who has earned his degree in wrestling, even though he didn't go to any wrestling school or college. It's Professor Bear, Herman Cade. Thank you for joining us tonight.
No, thank y'all. First off, I want to thank y'all for putting me in such esteemed company. I just feel like I'm not worthy. But with that being said, I appreciate and love all of y'all. It makes me, as a person that always is trying to learn and grow and to make sure that people understand the business, not just the now, but beforehand, and why it is where it is today. So I'm very grateful to be in this group. 6 years ago, at this time, I was arguing with my doctor to have hip surgery. He kept wanting to put it off, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I get COVID, everything, but I can't take it anymore. The pain is killing me. So that's where I was 6 years ago.
And you're feeling better now, I hope.
Yes, I am. After 2 different hip surgeries and 2 back surgeries, like I tell everybody, I open my eyes, I'm happy, and I'm blessed because everything else is a bonus. So
you've got one of the best attitudes of any podcaster I've ever worked with, and I'd love to do your show again, and you're welcome to come back on the show for another full-time interview. We owe you one after you had me on your show for about 2 hours. So that was a great interview. I
love that. And I think I'm going to do this. I was going to wait until afterwards, but I think I'll do it right now. We have a podcast, an app. we did it last year, but we took it down, and we're working on bringing it back. And I would love to have your shows on our app where people can watch, do see the beginning of it, and learn, because y'all bring so much history, and this is what is needed in wrestling today. So
everybody in the room agrees with you. We'll work those details out offline, but I'm excited to hear that. So let's go to another beloved friend of the show, and that is Mark Nowotarski. Please tell us all about yourself and what you were doing 6 years ago.
Well, gentlemen, good evening to everybody, both on air and on camera, and the audience. Once again, my name is Mark Nowotarski. I'm an independent filmmaker. I have over a 40-year history in news. Evan, one of my dearest friends, Russ, man of true style, Leonard, hello, Sheldon, hello, Mike, how could I get away without giving you my sincerest regards? Gentlemen, pleasure to meet you. 6 years ago, I had COVID. As a matter of fact, I contracted COVID in Detroit, and I have resided for the past 12 years in San Diego, and it actually kept me away because I had to stay in Detroit because when I returned to San Diego, I did not want to give COVID to my wife, who sadly recently passed away. So when I say I'm the producer, I produced a documentary on the original Sheik, the Sheik, wrestling's greatest villain. You gentlemen have promoted it to beat the band. Sheldon, I know you're aware of it. Leonard, I know you're aware of it. Mike, of course. Also, another production, Battles, Bouts, and Brawls, which was the sequel, was broadcast on national PBS. Those titles are currently available on the website insent.net. And I'm probably about 3 steps below Evan in terms of being tech savvy, as you found out just before this show.
Yes, but it's great to have you. And, you know, again, our sincerest condolences, the loss of your wife. I should have added it to the memoriam segment, but, you know, I can't remember everybody. I tried my best.
No,
but we still mention her, and we still think of her in our thoughts tonight. And then all I can say about our next guest is that he's basically been a co-host, and I could just say, Kaluka cuckoo, Kaluka cuckoo, from the Great White North, Jonathan Schwartz. Thank you for joining us. You have your mute on.
Yep, nope, we're off mute now, and I like to think that my participation makes this wrestling from coast to coast to coast. As a third one in, since that's part of our national motto. I'm thrilled and excited and surprised that I made the cut, given just the people who are already on this panel. I very much appreciate the invitation and being part of the show for the last few years. 6 years ago, school was about to end. We'd found out on March 15th up here in Toronto that they were basically shutting everything down. At the time, it was supposed to be a 2-week break. 2 weeks turned into a month, turned into 2 months, turned into 3 months. By this point, we were trying to juggle 2 careers, my wife and myself, and our kids being 6 and 4, just in kindergarten, just in daycare, trying to keep everybody healthy and safe and sane, despite the fact that nobody could really see anybody at that point. To be perfectly honest, I feel kind of lucky that if I were going to be in any position under those circumstances, that's the lot that we had. The kids were young enough that you could take them outside with some sidewalk chalk and bubbles and a couple of hockey sticks, well, Toronto, and entertain them for hours on end if they needed to be. We were lucky that the school was supportive. We were lucky that our jobs were both very supportive as well. Rough couple of years, but we all came through it. And now we're just all waiting for Ebola.
Yeah, waiting for Ebola.
That's positive.
Hantavirus up here. I don't know if you guys have had that one yet.
We had our skit. We've all stayed off of cruise ships since then. But I'd like to give the long distance award to the man, our final guest, and certainly not last in our hearts, or least in our hearts, all the way from planet Kaplan, right? So that makes it the long distance award. You're from another planet. You know, the rest of us are in other cities, but you're from another planet. So we go from coast to planet Kaplan, Leonard Kaplan. I will say this before you say anything. I can say there may be people who know more about professional wrestling than you, but there's nobody more thoughtful about professional wrestling than you, Leonard. Your level of like deep insight into what makes wrestling work is not like anyone else, even anyone else in this panel, which I consider you all like super elite, but you're unique that way. And I never had a chance to say that directly to you, but I'm saying it to you now. Thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you, Russ. I'm honored to be on such a panel as this. And our show started in 1987. Nobody knew what a wrestling talk show was. The wrestlers themselves, when I would call them, because I got a lot of the numbers from Walter Kowalski, they didn't know what to make of us. My late partner, Paul Fay, was a wrestler and a manager, and we started the show by Paul saying, hey, he didn't even tell me he was a wrestler. Paul said to me, hey, Len, I could get Kowalski to come on to your channel, because I ran a public access TV channel. And I said, well, that's great. I'd love to meet him, because I was always a wrestling fan. But what are we going to put him on? So he came, he stayed. We taped for 90 minutes straight, and that became our first 4 episodes. We went from there. The show was a regular commodity at 33 years from that date. I think it was like 2018. And then I just started doing them intermittently. We lost Paul 4 years into the show to colon cancer. And as to what I was doing in 2020 is I was teaching media technology and still photography at a vocational school. And there was nothing to do. I had to meet with them online. How do you teach hands-on training on video and still photography equipment with on screen remotely? It's impossible, you know. So that's you know. And I think what you were saying earlier, I think if any of that is true about me, it's because we did our show starting in the era of kayfabe up until 1991, when I think McMahon had that trial with the steroids, and after that, kayfabe just kind of broke away. Everyone broke away from kayfabe and did what is now called shoot interviews, and we spanned, Paul and I and my other co-host Ed Whittier and Jim Quinlan, we spanned the era from kayfabe to after kayfabe, and that's why we knew kind of what to do with both of those philosophies. That's
sounds biblical. Before kayfabe and after.
Yeah. Yes.
So, and if you guys will indulge me for just one more segment here, and that is, I want to show everyone a memorial slideshow of the people that we have had on the show in the last 6 years, who are unfortunately no longer with us, or people that were special to us that we lost during the time of the show or just shortly before the show. So thank you for giving me the opportunity for this. Let's go and from beginning here.
And of course, Mark's wife is would not.
Yes, I forgot to add her as part of everything. But here's some of the people, unfortunately, that have passed away while we've been on the show. First is J.J. McGuire. We've had him on the show. He was the guy that did a lot of WWE music. And he was a really nice guy. I'm sorry he's gone. Tony Jones.
Shooter Tony Jones.
Yeah, the shooter. He was a personal friend of myself and Leno, and I worked with him in Pro Wrestling Iron, and it was a very tragic passing for him. Mike Pappas was on our show as well. He was an originator of high flying wrestling in the early 60s and 70s, and he was I think he died only like a couple months after he was on our show. So it's really unfortunate to lose him. Of course, the genius, Lanny Poffo. Yeah. He was on show number 100 for us. So he was really a special guest. I met him in person. Evan knew him very close personally, and it was a real shock to lose him. We really didn't see that coming. So that was, anything you want to say, Evan, about Lanny?
Lanny was a dear friend. He'd sleep on my couch. My wife would make him Korean, cuisine, and just a lovely, eclectic, intelligent, encyclopedic memory. He could recite epic poems or show tunes or whatnot. Yeah, very special guy. Really transcended wrestling, and that genius gimmick wasn't really a gimmick because he, brilliant guy. You could talk to him about anything. Most of the time, I didn't even talk to him about wrestling. It was theater and music and politics and such. And yeah, man, it really hit me hard because he was really conscious of his health. He took care of himself, but the toll that the wrestling business will have on you, it's hard to calculate. I mean, we've discussed that a lot, but man, I to this day I hear his voice, that very distinctive voice, and I miss him terribly, really.
Let me add quickly, Sheldon and Evan helped me at my 1991 St. Louis Munchnick convention, Weekend for the Boys, 3-day thing, and they'll remember Lanny came in. He was one of my 20 co-hosts behind Fez and Ernie Ladd and folks like that, and brought in guests with him to help out. And also at the 2015 WrestleMania Hall of Fame in San Jose, Pampero Firpo's daughter Mary, who I've known since she was little, and
also gets on the show.
Yeah, I brought her a bunch of times to the show, but Lanny listed Mary and myself as friends and family, so we were second row at the Hall of Fame, and he got us at all this stuff, because that was the year he was inducting his brother, Randy, and so a guy who had sent me his first poetry book, I don't know, Sheldon would probably know, one of you guys might know the year, was it like 76 when he just started working with Angelo for the Chic, and they were way above. Randy was in the openers, because he just gotten out of Bombay baseball, and they were World Tag Team Champions, NWA World Tag Champions for Chic. So Lanny, we all love and miss him.
Yeah.
Then we had Melissa Coates. She wasn't on the show. We did do a tribute to her. And Evan, do you want to say anything real quick about Melissa?
Yeah, Melissa was at my wedding, dear friend, and she was a champion bodybuilder, and she did some work in WWE. She was on one of the pay-per-views, and she was in their farm system or whatnot, and she was Sabu's girlfriend, and it's hard to believe they're both gone. So, funny story. I'm getting married, and all of a sudden, Melissa walks in the room with the flowing, blonde hair down to her butt, and the muscles, and and it's like the wedding stopped. Like everybody was like looking at Melissa. I'll never forget it. And this really happened. I'm not exaggerating. And she was really a beautiful person, and it's hard to believe, so many of them are gone. I mean, her and Sabu. You know,
Yeah.
it's really hard to wrap your head around it.
Russ and I were there. Bailey, WWE's Bailey, Pam, her second or third match ever in front of people in Northern California was against Melissa. So
that's right.
And they stayed in touch. They stayed in touch too.
There was APW All Pro Wrestling Dana Lee, who was a friend of mine at when I worked at All Pro Wrestling, and he didn't wrestle for very long and didn't make it far in the circuit, but another man who was only in his early 50s who passed away last year. Then we had the unfortunate tragic bike accident which happened to Max Justice, also a friend of mine from All Pro Wrestling and Pro Wrestling Iron, and he's featured in the movie Beyond the Mat. And it was really tragic what happened to him. Do you want to say anything quick about him, Mike?
I was close with him on day one. I shot his first match in front of people as Big Mike Diamond, and he was part of that hierarchy with Mike Modest and Donovan Morgan. And when they broke away from APW Rollins, APW that was in, of course, Beyond the Mat, and then to form Iron, and just a nice guy. His shoot job was working was it Delta or United? But wrestling kept him busy. He was able to get a tour, at least one tour with Bison Smith, because Donovan Morgan, Mike Modest had the connection with Pro Wrestling Noah, which was insane because Misawa took all those guys. They were unhappy with Mrs. Baba to form Noah, and very similarly, the company that they would align themselves with, Pro Wrestling Iron, did the same thing, but with APW. Not on the level of all Japan Pro Wrestling, certainly, but intertwining stuff. But Mike was just an awesome guy, and for a huge tall guy.
Giant.
Well, he had that series with the great Khali, Dilip Singh. He was like carrying him and showing him the ropes, in his earliest feud in our Northern California promotion. So I can't say enough great things about what a brother to everyone Mike was.
He was a really great guy. Totally tragic.
And primetime Dana Lee, I had no idea he passed. Another great guy that Russ and I, knew backstage, and great talent for the amount of time he wrestled. Mike,
far too early to be gone. Then we had Johnny Legend, who I didn't know personally, but we did do a tribute show to him. Mike, you want to say something real quick about Johnny?
Well, I had first met him like 69, 70 when he came up to ask to buy some pictures, but just a wonderful person. He started his own wrestling company. He toured the world with his band. He cajoled Blassie into doing the 4-song EP King of Men, which had Pencil Neck Geek and all the other great songs on it, and bumped Billy Mummy from Lost in Space and a zillion other projects, Twilight Zone, out of #1 with the Pencil Neck Geek song debuted, and kicked that right off of the Dr. Demento's weekly #1 list. So, but just a wonderful guy. Sheldon probably knew of him.
Oh yeah, I've met him numerous times.
Sheldon, you want to give just a quick thought about Johnny?
He was just such an eclectic guy. He was a filmmaker. He was into wrestling. He had a band. I mean, this guy was so multi-talented and was successful on some level at everything he did. He was really somebody that I admired quite a bit. Just a good guy.
No, obviously, very well missed. And then finally, there was Aaron Boom Boom Kamini. I managed him in APW, and he worked with me in Pro Wrestling Iron, and Mike knew him as well, and he was never made the big time or anything like that, but he was a dedicated indie wrestler here in NorCal, and the man really didn't like mustard. That's my overall memory of him. So when I would work shows with him, he would eat anything I was eating. He would just grab it out of my hand when I was managing him and just stuff it down his throat. And then I learned he didn't like mustard, so I learned to have everything I ate before the match covered head to toe in mustard. So that was the only way I would get.
He was like Ron Jeremy. He would take food right off your plate and eat whatever you were eating. He would just grab it.
Oh yeah.
Like Ron Jeremy
Wow.
was part of Wrestling Society X, and what was that? Rob Black's porn wrestling promotion. I was the photographer for it, but he was.
Urban.
Comina came down, and Comini was a great rib artist in the back. Really, another sweet guy, great sense of humor, wonderful. All of these guys, wonderful people in the Northern California wrestling scene.
And then I quickly want to talk about some special memories. They weren't on the show, but we did talk about them extensively. Dr. Tom Parks, with Tim Hicks and Hector Bosa, we've mentioned on the show. CCW show worker Tom Wyatt, who was a friend of mine, unfortunately died late last year. We've also talked a lot about Johnny Valiant, who was a close friend to Evan Ginsberg, stayed at his house, and Evan managed him, and Nikolai Volkov, who was also Evan's close friend. My friend Virgil Flynn III, who died because of a stroke unexpectedly, but he was a major part of my Federation California Championship Wrestling for, in the mid-2000s. And then Tiger Khan, who was a really close friend to Evan Ginsberg. And finally, my really good friend, Bison Smith, who I managed for many years and also managed against many years in Pro Wrestling Iron. I do a tribute show to him every year, and I gotta say, Mark, I think about you every day. All right.
You managed him both with the hood and without the hood.
Yes. So that's the tribute there. Not to get too maudlin. I'm sorry that we have so many people that we've lost in 6 years, and they're all wonderful people. They were all people that thought more about others than themselves. And they thought about the art of professional wrestling rather than it just being a gig, or play fighting, or men running around, tussling around in their underwear, whatever term we get thrown at us for being fans of professional wrestling. These people gave their lives to wrestling. And it is worth taking the moment out of our show, out of this show, to acknowledge what they gave to all of us, because in the end, all they wanted to do was entertain us.
And not only did they give their lives, some of them were always in pain. They sacrificed their bodies to entertain us. Some marriages went by the wayside because they were on the road, endlessly. The ones who, made it to the big time, and et cetera, so on. And there's 50,000 or so wrestling podcasts, from what I'm told, and if 49,000 of them only, obsessively overanalyze WWE, they're missing the point that guys like this, indie guys, deserve to be acknowledged, especially if they pass. It's, these guys sacrificed a lot to entertain us, and to take a few minutes out of a show, or even to dedicate an entire show, as we've done many, many times, it's meaningful. It's meaningful. That silly angle on Raw or SmackDown that you're agonizing over, that's like garbage for the Cosmos a week or two later. These people did a lot to entertain us. Believe me.
Virgil Flynn was a guy who, now you see Javon Evans, the guy they call Bouncy because he does these amazing high spots. That was Virgil Flynn. He could have easily played that role. Melissa Coates, when Sabu needed, some of you guys have had some surgery you were talking about, needed one or both hips and a knee replaced, and when she gave up her wrestling career to become his valet, sort of chic-like Princess Salima from the 50s, 60s, she was super genie for Sabu. She would throw him the chairs, and she would help make him appear as though he was 100% when he was totally in pain, as Evan mentioned, and just very selfless person. So, boy.
So I just wanted to thank you guys for sitting through the tribute. Yes, go ahead.
I knew Melissa. She worked for me a number of times, and I was quite fond of her we would hang out and watch pay-per-views together. Just a terrific girl.
Sheldon,
really
I should
terrific
say,
girl.
Mercedes Martinez and Sumi Sakai, I don't think North America would know those people if it wasn't for New England Championship Wrestling and Sheldon Goldberg.
Yeah,
He
that's
put
true.
their names
That's
and
true.
many, many, many others on the map. But Mercedes Martinez, badass, and so many male and female great talents.
She did it all on her own terms. She's a remarkable girl, and I'm very, very proud of her.
And
if
for
anyone
me,
else has, yes, please.
No, I was going to say real quickly. For me, that is the big thing for today. Is anyone can pick up equipment and do a podcast about wrestling, but when you actually talk about the independent stars who do not get enough credit for doing and building wrestling to what it is now, because if it wasn't for the indies, it wouldn't be the WWEs, it wouldn't be the AEWs. There are so many people who think, oh, my career is nothing until I make it to the big time, but that's not true. There are some who are perfectly fine with doing independence and showing what wrestling truly is. And I love listening to people who will talk and give credit and help build wrestling the way it needs to be. That's shine for everyone, not just for your Roman Reigns, not for your just big guys, but for your young talent that who will go work 2 full-time jobs and don't care because they are doing what they love to do, and that's perform. And there's not enough credit given to people, to the men, women who bust their asses to do this. And I love giving credit to everyone that does that.
Yes, Jonathan, you raised your hand, please.
Sorry, Canadian politeness. I apologize.
No, it's good. And if anyone has a comment, please raise your hand, and I'll make sure to call on.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Herman was saying. It's been a thing that I've harped on for many, many years, that pro wrestling begins and ends with the indies. You don't get the kind of matches that you want to see, even if, as Evan would say, you don't always get at the WWE or at the AEW level, without a solid independent base across the U.S., within Canada, overseas as well. And we've seen this for between 2000, really up until 2015, 2020, as WWE acquired and put the old territory system out of business. Sooner or later, that funnel for talent that WWE relies on to put on pay-per-view every month dried up. And the scene across North America certainly just wasn't what it was, and you saw it in the caliber of matches, the kind of stories that WWE was able to tell. It's only within the last 10 years or so, as the independent scene has come back and become stronger, that you have this really solid pipeline, that you get the Kevin Owens, that you get the Sami Zayns, that you get the Jacob Fatus, that you get the LA Knights who spent time in TNA and the Reborn NWA and any number of other places, that you get the overseas talent like Rhea Ripley, or that you get the talent coming in from Japan. You don't get that from an artificial farm system like WWE has tried to use through FCW, through Memphis,
Ohio Valley,
NXT, through Ohio Valley. Thank you. Is it possible to develop talent that way? Sure. But Ohio Valley, there's the big four and a whole lot of people who never kind of made it to that level. The stars that you really see today are the ones who've come up through the independents. And I've got to tell you, as a fan, much as I enjoy watching WWE, much as I enjoy watching AEW, one of the greatest joys that I take as a fan is seeing Kevin Owens or Daniel Bryan or Seth Rollins, because I saw them in a 200-person venue in Mississauga, Ontario that didn't have a functioning bathroom 10 years ago before they were the guys that they are. And to see these guys performing at their best in front of millions of people, even if I don't love the storyline that Triple H and TKO have conjured up for him this week, that is kind of the part where I get to buy in as a fan. That's where my investment as a fan pays off. And I think having that kind of scene and having people like Sheldon, for example, who have devoted a good portion of their life to building that part of the wrestling ecosystem is just, that's the kind of thing that makes being a fan worthwhile. And that's the kind of thing that grows wrestling into the future.
Very well said. Let me just quickly have an introduction for a man who dropped in and also a very welcome guest all the way from Sports Illustrated in St. Louis is Ryan Boman. Thank you for joining us. And
Thank you guys.
We had a quick question. Give a 10-second introduction for yourself and tell everyone what you were doing 6 years ago.
6 years ago, I was running the GorillaPosition.com, which is a pro wrestling website, which my partner and I sold. And then I went back into being a sports writer, and I eventually bounced around. I ended up at Sporting News and then at Sports Illustrated. But actually, I'm in discussion with another website right now, and because we've had a lot of upheaval at Sports Illustrated. So I'm still talking with them, but I'm wanting to get on somewhere where I'm more of a team leader and an editor. So I'm not really sure where things are going to go from now on. I might stay at SI, I might go somewhere else, but it's definitely been an adventure to be there, that's for sure.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We were just having a little discussion about, what the independents mean to wrestling today. Benny, did you have your hand up for a sec?
I did. Yeah, I have to go to the
Please.
bathroom. No, I'm only kidding. So I wanted to expound upon what Professor Bear and Jonathan both said. I love both baseball and wrestling. The last time I went to see a professional baseball game, it was about a year and a half ago. I went to the Trop here in St. Pete, and I spent, between parking and a nosebleed ticket, $123 to see the Rays. And then I bought a beer for $25. I walked around with my hands up, and one of the security guards said, "Why are you holding your hands up?" And I said, "Well, isn't that the custom when you get held up to stick your hands up?" So, and
certainly highway robbery, and yeah.
Wait, you're not that far from the Savannah Bananas, Benny.
Never seen them, but for that $123, there's the Florida State League plays down here, and the Clearwater Threshers, the Class A Florida State League team of the Phillies, play about 25 miles from my house. I can, for $9, I can get in. I can get a nice craft beer for $9. I can get a Philly cheesesteak to die for about $9. So for $27, I have a great day, at the ballpark on a sunny Sunday afternoon. And you never know who you might be watching. You might be watching the next Aaron Judge. By the same token, I'm going to spend my money. Backlash was here about a month ago. I think the nosebleed seats were about $95. I'm not spending for that kind of money. I can go to like 7 or 8 indie shows and support these indie wrestlers who are, trying to make their dreams come true. And I think there's one here in Port Richey. I forget who it is. In a couple of weeks, and I'm gonna go to that. I'm gonna support these indie guys because they need the support. The guys in WWE, they're multi-millionaires. They don't need anything. But I'm going to put my money where where it's most needed.
Very good. So I was going to throw this out to everybody, and just if you have a comment, just raise your hand. I'll make sure to call on you when you have something to say. But what do you think is the biggest change between wrestling 6 years ago to where it is now? What is the biggest difference in wrestling? There we go. Professor, I knew you'd be ready to say something right away. Go ahead.
To me, the biggest change is we've gone back to the territory system. We can see talent from all over the world without having to leave our home or our region. And that, to me, is a great thing. As a kid that grew up in the territory systems, I loved it. But now you had to be in a certain place or have cable to see certain stars to learn about them. But now it's that same field, but you can get a streaming service platform, or you can go on YouTube. And I love that because you get to see so many different talent out there, and you can learn about them. You can get supportive about them. And that the WWE, AEW are finally more WWE is finally realizing, hey, we can build, but we can't build the true traditional professional wrestler. We have to get them from the independent. And it's okay to mention where they came from and give them some shine and light, because this is the true thing that builds professional wrestling. Not sports entertainment, but professional wrestling.
Excellent answer. Sheldon, you were next, and I'll get to Jonathan.
Yeah, the last few years that I was promoting, I ran across a very big change in the attitudes of talent. Everybody was out there to be signed by somebody, and if you were economically unable to offer contracts, then you were just a date on the calendar. And I think a lot of guys, especially people who work for me in that period, lost out because what we were giving them, we were on TV. What we were giving them was really pretty substantial, a pretty substantial platform that a lot of people watched. And, but oh no, I'd rather go work for whatever the indie darling of the day was. And it almost like it wasn't good enough for them. And it was a real difficult thing to get them to realize that you build your career platform by platform. If you have a platform where you can truly perform, not just have a match, but have a program, do promos, that's what builds your career. People that see you as a complete performer and not just a spot show match. So the attitude of talent has really changed, and they're a lot more mercenary as the business has become more corporatized.
Very interesting answer, Sheldon. Jonathan, you're next in line.
Sure. Speaking of corporatized, I think the single biggest event to happen over the last 6 years, and I'll say probably the single biggest event to happen in the last 40 years in wrestling, going back to when Vince McMahon took over the WWF from his father, is the sale of WWE to TKO. I don't think we know what the ramifications of that are going to be going forward entirely. I think
higher prices. That's the first thing. They made that pretty clear.
Greed. I think the really key thing here is that for all of the many legitimate problems that went with the McMahon's ownership of WWF, when it was a closely held, even if it was a publicly traded company, the McMahons still dominated the shares and had the vast majority of voting shares in the corporation. They were able to run it as their personal fiefdom, regardless of what the market said, regardless of what the fans wanted, regardless of what many regulators wanted. They had a measure of insulation from the realities of the public and the economy. And Vince was able to run it like his own playground. And he did for, in some cases, good and in a lot of cases, bad. The level of public oversight that comes with being part of a broader publicly traded company, which essentially meant Vince McMahon and his many problems became the first casualty of that. The fact that WWE, as much of a prize jewel asset as it is within this new company, TKO, and the broader company, shell company that oversees it, is now subject to the same kind of rules as any kind of entertainment asset would be. It's on more of a footing, like if you remember WCW after it was acquired by TBS. WCW, when it was acquired by TBS, was still safe, largely because under Ted Turner's ownership, he had a vested interest in keeping wrestling a going public concern and keeping it on the air. As part of a bigger, broader corporate entity, if WWE doesn't generate the kind of money that it's supposed to or that it's forecast to, if it doesn't enter into the kind of increasingly contentious international partnerships that bring in a heck of a lot of money, even if it alienates domestic fans, WWE is just a number on a balance sheet. And I think it will be interesting to see where that goes long term, and if that bodes for some kind of reset within the industry more broadly. Likely not tomorrow, likely not in 10 years, but I think that that's going to be the source of a sea change within the industry.
Very interesting. Ryan, you're next on the docket here.
Okay, now my mic's on. I think over the last 6 years, the biggest thing is the absolute embrace of comedy and celebrities and skits and musical acts. It's gotten, I mean, we've always had that in the 2000s, but the last few years, especially with the rise of AEW, which is pretty much the last 6 years, 7 years, something like that, it's gone from an action movie to just flat out musical comedy at this point. And then the fans embrace it. They seem to like it better than the actual in-ring action, which is kind of odd to me, but it seems to be the trend that the fluff stuff gets more attention. Look at Danhausen being such a huge draw today in WWE. The fans don't care about the action in the ring anymore, really, other than, a bunch of high spots and we go home. I mean, I don't know, it sounds like gloom and doom from me, but I actually think in some ways it's helped the product, but in other ways it's really, really starving the in-ring action. It's starving what goes on in the squared circle. As far as I'm concerned, until we change the formats of these shows, that's another thing I've noticed. The last 6 years, we just continue to stick with this early 2000s Raw TV format. Promo match, backstage, promo, it's really gotten to the point where it's almost like a downward spiral, but there are still so many positive things that you can point to, and some of the new changes are good. It just seems to me that they've embraced it way too much.
Very interesting.
Russ,
Blair.
I've got to go.
Go.
Let me just quickly say this about TKO. They've eliminated house show matches. Now they're reconsidering because that was a place where people could get their reps, new coming talent. Also, WWE in the last X amount of years, we're talking 6, but they've gone out and scouted non-wrestling people, somebody who never watched pro wrestling at all, legit athletes. For me, not all, I'm not going to stereotype, but a lot of them don't have the passion of an indie wrestler, somebody like all of us probably here grew up from age 3 or 4 watching wrestling, attended, maybe became a wrestler, whatever. But on a positive level, WWE's ID program, Herman and others were talking about, how important the indies are, and thankfully, thank God, they're strong globally. The ID program helps sort of almost counter the if you get a track and field person who never watched wrestling, but the ID program WWE has, that's kind of a positive for those indie folks. And I'm going to bid everybody good night and great show.
All right, we'll see you next week, Mike. Go. Thank you for joining us.
Sorry to interrupt everybody.
See you, Mike.
No, thank you.
Good to see you.
So, Blair, please, you're next on the docket here.
Yeah, I won't take too much time, but great points by everybody. I'm kind of piggyback off of what Jonathan was saying too. That was my thought. The whole corporatization of the product, number one, and I think with what we're seeing with TKO with WWE is very similar to what we saw with Time Warner and WCW and that situation. So you now have the most powerful wrestling company in the world that is being run by people that have no association with wrestling or any passion for the product whatsoever. So what we're watching in real time is almost the setup of a corporation that's being dismantled and being ready for a sale, which feels like with the WWE. The other thing, of course, when you say over the last 6 years, is with the rise of AEW, you have such a division amongst fans that we never had in the past. That's I don't think is healthy for the product. I always talk about, as somebody who covers the 80s, I didn't care what territory it was. I was seeking it out and trying to find it and watch it because I just wanted to see wrestling. But now it's just us versus them, and just it's not enjoyable. There's people that are fighting over wrestling at a time when we're being told more often than not this isn't real. So it's unreal. It's almost like there's an imaginary kayfabe that's come back into the product just because people have gotten so crazy over this. But yeah, it's I don't like the direction things are going with the modern product.
We have talked about wrestling tribalism many times on the show. Leonard, you haven't said anything yet, so please.
I see something positive happening in the last 6 years and in the present, and that's the role of women in professional wrestling seems to be a lot more numerous, and there's excitement on the part of the fans. It's not a case where it used to be a woman's match would come on and fans would grumble and be bored and go out for popcorn or whatever. But especially with the Japanese women, there's a lot of Japanese women in the WWE right now. And I see that as a positive with all the negative. And believe me, I used to work for a corporation. They're no fun. They're very impersonal. But I think in this case, they're doing a really good job, finally, on behalf of the women.
And Mark, we haven't heard from you, so why don't you chime in on this?
Well, I will agree with Leonard very much so about the level of the ladies being attention given to. One word for me, and I may have the blinders on, so thank you, by the way, Russ, for giving me the chance here. But one word sums it up, and everybody has mentioned it, it's corporate. It's a matter of the fun for the fans. Do the fans actually look forward to next week or whenever the time would be? I don't see it myself. That was it.
Okay, and Ryan, did you have something you wanted to add? Still your hand up.
Oh, I forgot to take my hand down, but that's okay. I do want to add something because I think what you guys said, especially the tribalism thing, great point. Whoever just said that a while ago about how, when you get a wrestling magazine, you'd read about every company. You didn't care about, and especially the ones you didn't get to see. Back when I was young, I didn't get to watch, a lot of those territories on television. Portland, I never got to see it, as it was happening. So those magazines were a lifeline for me as a fan, and I never had I was always an NWA guy. I didn't like the WWF product as much, but when it was good, I would watch it and I would praise it. So I don't really understand this. My feeling is like, if you would have told me a long time ago that you could literally watch a different wrestling show every night of the week, I would have been in hog heaven. But now these people just have turned it into a war. So great point on that earlier. That's all I had to say. Thanks, guys.
Fantastic. Yeah, Sheldon, please.
Yeah, just real quick. They've sucked the soul out of pro wrestling. These big companies, TKO has sucked the absolute soul out of this business. And I think I should give some praise to people that are trying to put that back in. Billy Corgan and his NWA. I don't know if you watch it, but I really enjoy his product. He's functioning at
Power is surprisingly a fun show because it brings you back to that studio.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff that you used to watch.
Yeah, and we need more of that. Not everybody's a multimillionaire like Billy Corgan, and could afford to operate on his level, and even he's functioning at an economic handicap going up against these big corporate entities. But I just think I see some hope that somebody out there is going to keep the flame going, and that's especially critical, especially in this era where the guys who had territory experience who are involved in the business are dwindling at a rapid rate. And once they're gone, who's left to carry the torch?
The Indies, hopefully. I think that there's always, less corporate restriction, obviously, and less oversight over what happens in the Indies, which is why the Indies are able to spawn someone like Danhausen, I mean, if you had just the pure just WWE, AEW factories that are generating talent, you don't get a Danhausen. Okay, you get Danhausen from years of just guys, you know, filtering their way up to the indies and making their way up to the pros because they've had enough hard knocks to realize that it's just not something that you make by just opening a box and saying, here's your pro wrestler, you know. Oh, Blair, you have something to add with us. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick one, just on Sheldon's point. I think another thing that we begot from the whole COVID era is the fact that everybody had a chance to learn how to become video editors and become videographers and to create different things through different networks, not just YouTube, but there's so many. Herman talked about they have an app coming up and stuff like that. We wouldn't even thought of that 10 years ago, right? And so now, speaking of the indie product, people all over the world are able to get their hands on independent wrestling, see all these different amazing wrestlers that we never would have heard of. And it's like, you know, people are putting on high quality shows, which that helps attract the viewer. It's not looking like it's on an old VHS tape or something like that. It's like, 10, 15 years ago. So that's a good thing for pro wrestling, because that's what's going to lead to maybe a rise of that. Maybe not the territories, but a minor league system that gets an interest and keeps people working.
Jonathan.
Just to your point about Danhausen too, part of the importance of having a thriving indie system is people like Danhausen, who ultimately develop that kind of creative streak, have that chance to figure themselves out and to develop their character and establish for any promotion what their value proposition is, what makes them different and worth booking, what butts are they going to bring to the seats ultimately. And I think that you need that opportunity to kind of go somewhere, find yourself, figure out your wellspring of creativity, whatever it takes to kind of get to a point where you can either make it a go of it on the indie scene as it is, or if your goal is ultimately to get back to a larger venue, then there's that as well. But
so
I think
Jonathan,
well, hang on. I was just going to say, I think that you've seen it with Danhausen, who basically made it happen from scratch. You've seen it with Cody Rhodes, who went from a go nowhere mid-carder, and I'm not casting aspersions on being a mid-carder, but somebody who really kind of never lived up to his potential because WWE didn't necessarily know what to do with him. But he figured out what to do with himself and then exported that to the NWA and Ring of Honor and ultimately to AEW and back into WWE at a much higher position. Same with Drew McIntyre. Same, at least on the indie scene, with Matt Cardona, who basically went from a pretty limited character with a very low ceiling despite a tremendous fan following. Again, early days of the internet, WWE didn't quite know what to do with it, and then just barnstormed the indies for 6 years. And you can argue whether his return to WWE is, what we as fans necessarily want to see. But really, if it's what makes him happy, then by all means, go for it.
I was going to say, Jonathan, that you don't think that the WWE's 450-page manual of stuff that you can't say when you're on a WWE broadcast was curtailed the creativity of talent at all. That handing them a 450-page book saying these are all the things you can't say on air. Is
so. I honestly think that had less to do with curtailing talent. I think talent can rise despite any kind of limitations that are placed on it. You just have to kind of figure out what the rules of the game are and then how to circumvent them. Speaking as a lawyer, what I do think that makes it more difficult is when the people who have ultimate decision-making authority over how you're portrayed and your character and what you get to say don't necessarily see or follows what works. I mean, I was saying about NXT before. I think one of the most glaring examples of that was somebody like Karrion or Killer Kross, who had a tremendous run throughout the indies, did a great job in NXT, was pushed to the moon, and had fantastic crowd reactions. And the first day he shows up in his first WWE run, they job him out to Jeff Hardy.
I can tell you the story of Jeff Cobb.
Despite a few stop-start pushes in his second run, very much the same kind of thing. Even when the audience started to climb aboard that kind of creepy gimmick that he was working, there was still no interest in kind of taking that to the next level. Winds up leaving WWE, and he's back to barnstorming again, and he's doing tremendous work again on the indie scene, primarily with Major League Wrestling. So I think it's important that there's always someplace else to go and someplace to redevelop yourself. One more example, I'm sorry for taking up so much time. Leo Rush, incredibly talented, high-flying, athletic wrestler, has cycled through any number of gimmicks across WWE, AEW, and everywhere in between. Japan he's worked. He's now basically wrestling's version of Gollum in a gimmick that he, again, took time back on the indie scene, worked it up, and it's now getting play on AEW. And I've got to tell you, I don't fully understand it, but it's one of the most flat-out entertaining gimmicks that I've seen lately. And here we have a marriage of somebody with what could be an outright, absolutely silly gimmick, but man, that guy can go in the ring. And I will stop what I'm doing and watch his matches because there's that weird combination of somebody who's absolutely great to watch in the ring and fun to watch in the ring, and he just brings something completely different and weird to the audience. And that's why you need to get out of the strictures of these places and find a way to bring it back in. And hopefully the management at WWE or AEW or wherever else is willing to take the chance on you bringing that to a wider audience and having it resonate.
Professor Baird.
So two things. In anything that goes on in the world, older things come back in style. We are getting out of the entertainment business. People are starting to get tired of entertaining wrestling, and they want wrestling again. That's where you can see it in the indie scene. You can see it in WWE now. They're trying to add more wrestling into it, which is great, and that's going to take us back through a time where a lot of people who don't get a chance to be creative can get creative, just like you mentioned with Danhausen, with all these other stars. So that is great. Another thing is you got to look at the platform. And as much as all these huge wrestling companies, what is the common denominator that they have? Most of them do not have wrestling fans to help keep wrestling in it. They get entertainment. They getting writers who have no idea, pardon my French, know what the hell they're talking about. That is part of, you can see now, some of these smaller indie promotions that are starting to thrive up is because they actually have wrestlers. They have people, the older generation, who's taught these younger guys what wrestling is all about. So now they get to bring it in. And that's why, again, and not to sound like I'm just plugging WSN stuff, but one of the biggest things and why we are doing the app is because we want fans to realize there are wrestling companies out there that actually give a damn about wrestling. Just because they don't have the corporate behind them, they don't have the money, doesn't mean their wrestling is less than. It's actually a lot better. That's one of the things I love about going to indie shows, because I get to see wrestling. I get to see the wrestlers, the men, the women, work gimmicks, learn from, talk about. When after the show, they actually talk to their fans and listen to them. One of the biggest things that I've been blessed with, that people like my opinion. So I get to talk to a lot of different wrestlers, and I always tell them, you are a corporation under yourself. You have to learn how to sell yourself, how to work, how to make these companies stop saying, what can you bring to to us and make them say, what can we do for you? Because you are the main three. I do not care on whoever. WWE can sit here and have TKO and this and that, but they're burning fans out of their money, their entertainment. I would rather, like a bunch of us already said, I would rather pay the money that I'm going to pay to go see a WWE show. I would rather use that money to go around my area to see different wrestling, different, unique home. You can tell they give a damn about wrestling. And as soon as the major corporations understand to get the corporate out of it, then wrestling will thrive again on that level.
Very good point. Ryan.
Russ, I have to go. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, thank you for joining us, Leonard. We'll see you again soon. I'll have you back on the show again soon.
Thank you, Leonard.
So Ryan, yes, your thoughts?
Well, I was going to say I was going to take Sheldon Goldberg in the center square, but he's been moved over now. Because that's what it reminds me of, is Hollywood Squares, with the way we're all positioned right now. But by the way, Sheldon, hello. I was going to give you a call last week to check on you because I knew you had the health stuff going on. So I apologize, my friend.
See you, man.
I think two things, and Herman brought up a point. I don't handle that many more. I don't deal with that many more kids' contracts and getting them booked and stuff anymore. But there's like three that still, and I say the same thing.
Hi, Ron.
Hello.
Give me a bus when you get a chance.
Okay. All right. No, out of the kids I still advise, I say the exact same thing. You are your own entity. You are your own brand, and you have to market yourself as such. And someone earlier, and I'm sorry we're jumping around a lot, so I'm forgetting names, when they mentioned Coady, and then Herman brought that up, that's almost the exact model. This month is 10 years ago when he departed WWE for the first time, May of 2016. At the time, he said he was leaving because he thought he could be more valuable on his own, and people laughed. At the time, it was unheard of. You couldn't make it anywhere if you didn't make it in WWE. Well, he set out to, basically, he marketed himself as a star. He booked himself as a star in different companies based on his name, and he was able to elevate himself while controlling his name, his brand, his likeness, his image, that logo, everything. It all came together under his creation. So when he moved on to WWE, he had something to say, well, here's what I've got. What are you going to give me for it? And I wrote a story 10 years ago when it happened called the Coady Effect, which was like the butterfly effect, saying this could have a ripple through the business. And then 10 years later, this year, I wrote version 2. I said, if you look back, so many other wrestlers have followed that same blueprint of, I will market myself to the indies. I will be, just like Danhausen did, I will be who I want to be there, and I will take that character to a company, and they will pay me for it instead of me begging for a job. And I think Coady started a big trend with that, not 6 years ago, but 10 years ago, this month.
Very interesting. Benny, we haven't heard from you in a little bit.
I want to kind of expand what Professor Bear said, too, that, you know, I believe that wrestling was always made to be personal and local. You know, when I was a kid, when I got my license in 1972, I could drive to the Nassau Coliseum, you know, which was 20 minutes from my house, and watch a good, solid wrestling card for $5, which, you know, back then, maybe it's equivalent, maybe 20 now, but still, to get a great seat and watch Bruno and Waldo Von Erich and Spiros Arion and Chief J. Strongbow, all of whom are legends. I could do that every month, you know, for what it would cost me now to buy a ticket for one event that's going to show up in Tampa, you know, for the whole year. And, you know, by supporting the indie wrestlers, you can go to a lot more shows. And that's, you know, back in the day when wrestling was in Memphis every Monday night at the Mid-South Coliseum, you know, it was personal. It was blue collar. People saw Lawler and Bill Dundee and Jimmy Valiant and all those guys. And, you know, by the same token, you know, Lawler, when he walked down the aisle, probably saw the same fans every Monday night. and you got that unspoken bond. That there's no such thing anymore.
Yeah, no, you're right. Now, Mark, we haven't heard from you in a little bit. What's your thought?
Well, I've got to agree with Benny there. And by the way, how do you do?
Nice to meet you, sir.
Pleasure. That bond, I haven't seen that bond for quite a while. Again, it's a matter of as a fan looking forward to what was going to go on next. And you know, I'd rather make a sandwich or whatever, and then without saying when
our food and wrestling show isn't our next food and wrestling show isn't till the end of the year, so we'll have to work that in later.
Yeah, okay. And it just, you know, all I can do is shake my head, and just watching as an observer from the sidelines, so to speak. It's when any of you gentlemen or anybody else will say it's a different world, man, you're not kidding. Yeah.
And before we get back to you, Professor, I wanted to find Evan's been nicely silent and letting all of our guests talk, but I want to hear what his thoughts are.
It's interesting that with the obscene prices that WWE is charging, for example, the most recent Raw at the Garden, it was $122 in the nosebleed. So if you're a mom and dad with 2 kids, you're looking at $500 before you walk in the door, and then you have the gimmicks, the food, the trans, whatever. You could spend $1,000 that night. So what used to be, at least in Madison Square Garden, 12 to 14 cards a year, now it's a handful or less than a handful. It becomes a birthday present or a graduation present or a Christmas present. WWE traditionally has run December 26th, right around Christmas time, for that very reason. You give Junior a Christmas gift, you take him to WWE, and you max out your credit card. So that's all negative, obviously, but the positive side of it is at some point, people are going to go, I can't afford this. It's mediocre. I'm spending too much money. I know guys that went to WrestleMania in 2025, they're still paying it off on their credit cards. So you start to say, hey, let me go down to the local indie. It's only 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 bucks. And you can meet the wrestlers and take pictures with them, and it's more personal, and it's certainly more up close. You're sitting right on top of the action, and you might create a generation of indie fans as opposed to corporate, vanilla wrestling like this Cash in Italy show today, which was instantly forgettable. So it may filter down that the indies are helped by all of this, and I hope that's the case, because I say support indie anything, indie music, indie wrestling, indie film, indie publishing, indie comics, whatever it is, support indies. The billion-dollar corporations with their all-consuming greed, they're laying off tons of people in WWE, future endeavoring them, while giving these corporate vultures multi-million-dollar, raises. Come on, go support the mom and pop indie down the block. Seriously.
Well said.
That's my lecture. Sheldon. Yes. You're muted, Sheldon.
Yeah, something's with your audio for a second here. I know what's going on there, Sheldon. Something's with your audio. But in the meantime, Professor Baer, you had an additional.
Yeah, another thing that we talked about is all this tribalism. And you got to realize this is part of corporate also. Because if I make it where you only like my product, you're only going to spend on my product. And if I can get you...
Yeah, no, Evan, you're right. You're spot on. Am I mute?
We just got Sheldon.
Hold on.
Your audio just came in.
Something's
yeah,
wrong,
some kind of weird
Sheldon.
delay.
Let Professor Bear go, meanwhile.
Yeah, finish off, Professor.
Well, and what I mean is that the corporations are doing this to keep other fans from liking other products because they want all that money. Just like I said, Raw was here in Knoxville. I had no intention of going.
Can you hear me?
Sorry there, Sheldon. Can you hold on, Sheldon, and we'll finish off Professor Bear's point, and then we'll come back to you.
And just quickly, they want division so they can keep people separated to get money. That's where the indies come in. I'm blessed to have so many different indie companies around me. I have 2 NWA affiliations around me. They are great. I love them. I love watching these young guys and girls grow. When I see them on other things, now I'm watching them, seeing how they grew. What did they learn? And it puts me back to the wrestling I love. And as long as we continue doing that with the younger generation, letting them know that there's other things besides WWE. And you can be a fan of WWE, you can be a fan of AEW, but that doesn't stop you from being a fan of that mom and pop promotion around you. Give support. As many people as I'm blessed with getting legends to come on my show, I still love having indie guys and girls come on to talk about what they're doing, how they're doing it, who inspired them. My goal is to get more indie wrestlers out there so you can learn about them. So when they get to the point where they're that guy or girl, you can remember, man, I remember when I watched them. They build up, and just like Dusty Rhodes, and I use that as an example for me because the Dusty Rhodes I knew, he touched everybody. And it made you feel a part of not just wrestling, it made you feel a part of a community. And now we're getting back, at least in my eyes, we're getting back to having wrestling as a community. Whether we agree or not, it doesn't matter. As long as you're part of the wrestling family, you're okay in my book.
That's a wonderful sentiment. Sheldon, let's see if your audio is fixed.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're fine now. So go ahead.
All right. Okay. Well, I was just going to say, I was just going to agree with Evan and say that I started promoting back in 2000. And my biggest hurdle as a wrestling promoter at that time was credibility for the experience. People look around and say, hey, you're doing a wrestling show where? In some little place where there's an arcade and there's this other stuff? What is that? So, I had to build it into a very personal experience for the people that came. When you came to an NECW show, most likely I greeted you, tore your ticket, welcomed you to the show, chatted with you a little bit. At the end, when you were leaving, I thanked you for coming. And you got to see a lot of people, some of whom became very famous, and people didn't know who they were. I remember one night I had a guy come in with his kids, and he'd never been to an independent show before. And that particular night on the card was John Cena wrestling Frankie Kazarian. And John Cena was before he became famous.
The prototype.
And the place was, the place was packed because John's family had never seen him wrestle. And they bought like about 80 tickets. They bought out a lot of the house so that they could see him wrestle. And, I made a lot of fans that way, and I kept a lot of fans that way because I made it an up-close and personal experience. I also welcomed people from everywhere who wanted to wrestle for NECW. I gave Doug Williams You know, the British wrestler Doug Williams, he had his first match in America with NECW. Becky Lynch had her first match in America with NECW. Sumi Sakai had her first match in America with NECW.
Sumi is one of the, I've said about Sumi, because I worked a couple shows with her in Pro Wrestling Iron. I said, if Hello Kitty was a wrestler, it would be Sumi Sakai. She's just amazing.
Absolutely. So it was a lot of effort to educate people to what independent wrestling was when I started out, but it was worth it. I love the fans. I had a bond with the fans, and that was the reason why.
Now, Benny, did you have something up point you wanted to?
Yeah, and I'm hoping when I say this, I'm going to get an amen from Professor Bear. Is that people who pay, $120 to go see a WWE show? To me, they are sports entertainment analysts. But somebody who pays $11 to go to an indie wrestling show, they are wrestling fans. And
Amen.
I think, thank you. That's what we need. We need more wrestling fans.
That's a beautiful sentiment. Jonathan?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow what Sheldon was saying. Only that I feel very sorry for John Cena's family when they actually went to see him wrestle.
It wasn't so bad when he was the prototype.
No, he was good. He tore the house down.
Kazarian tore the house down. I'm sure he was great, but you can't see him.
Joking, Sheldon.
Yes. All right.
So we have a few minutes left. I really appreciate you guys coming here and being part of this extra long episode. I guess my what I'd like to have around, everyone give their thoughts on is, where do you think the future is headed now that what are we going to see 6 years from now? Where are we going to be at? And what are we going to be talking about? Why don't we start with you, Blair? Even though you're stuck in the 80s, let's hear what you think wrestling's going to be like 6 years from now.
Well, I think 6 years from now, what was this year? Was WrestleMania 42, so we'll be on our sixth consecutive WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia. It'll be Riyadh season every year in WWE, and AEW will continue to purchase every wrestler that WWE lets go. So hopefully, though, we see a lot of the rise of the quasi territories again. I hope we see a lot of independent wrestling become territorial wrestling. I'd love to see, as I forget who mentioned it, but just almost a contraction in the style of wrestling. Let's get back to the studio wrestling. Let's get back to the NWA style of things, because it can't keep going the way it's going. There's not going to be any fans left when the number of fans that used to watch Mid-South Wrestling in 1984 is more than on a Saturday is more than the amount of fans that are watching Raw or SmackDown. That's got to eventually cause a problem in the industry. So we need contraction is what we need, and we need to almost bulldoze it and start over again.
Or how about a return to the 1 hour wrestling program?
It'll never happen in the corporate world. Yeah.
I know that the 3 hour program sells more ads and everything. When I go back historically and watch the 1 hour shows, I'm a lot more entertained. Sometimes a little bit less is more, because you have something tighter. You don't have the showing replays of everything. You don't have the breaking in for ads all the time. I would love to, and I do think that's one of the advantages of the NWA Power Show, is that
also
it is only an hour.
Matches.
Yeah.
Actually get individual talent over by showing what they can do, as opposed to just bringing them out to talk about it.
Yeah, build them up. Benny, what's your thoughts?
I think 6 years from now, wrestling will still be polarized, but instead of like Team WWE versus Team AEW, it's going to be Team National Wrestling versus Team Indie Wrestling. And, I'm going to opt to be a wrestling fan and pay my hard-earned money to see young kids chasing their dreams.
Excellent. Evan, 6 years from now, where are we?
I think wrestling's always been cyclical, and it's in a boom cycle now, and it's going to, go back down because people are going to burn out on it. I can't watch wrestling 7 nights a week. AEW had an excellent pay-per-view the other day, and then 3 or 4 nights later, they have a 3-hour show on. I literally couldn't watch it. My brain can't absorb it. It's too much after a while. So I think you're going to hit a down cycle, and you're going to have interesting spin-offs, like Danhausen will have a sitcom, and other wrestlers will be making, indie films. And I think that's where it's going to go, because you can't just watch 80 hours of wrestling every week. There's other things in life. It's overkill.
But you got to make room for this podcast.
There's 50,000 wrestling podcasts. That's overkill already. No, honestly. It's like, how many podcasts can you listen to in 1 week?
This one.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
This one. Sheldon, your thoughts? Oh, your audio's back to being off again. I don't know what's the deal there.
He's in parts unknown. The reception's bad. Yeah.
He's in his own version of the wrestling backrooms here.
That's right. I saw that movie Backrooms yesterday. A 20-year-old made that movie, and it's not a bad movie.
Yeah. Sheldon, whatever you did with your audio, you're going to have to try doing it again, because we lost you for a sec. Do you mind if I'll switch over to Professor Bear quick hopefully his audio won't kick in and interrupt you, Professor. So what do you think wrestling is going to be like 6 years from now?
6 years from now, I think we're going to be going reverse and start seeing more wrestling than entertainment. I think that there are going to be young men and young women out there who are striving to bring back wrestling. And hopefully in 6 years, our app will play a big part of that with
giving a tremendous opportunity right now.
Oops, sorry. His audio delayed, so it's like coming in like a minute after he starts. I think just finish your thought. Can
you hear now?
So.
Oh God.
Technical difficulties, always an interesting part of the podcast. We haven't got that down to stuff. I hope 6 years from now, podcasting is a little bit easier and doesn't have as many technical difficulties. But finish your thought, Professor.
And real quickly, I hope that with all these different podcasts out here, that you are talking more about the indie podcasts that you see. Because I believe that, yes, there are so many different podcasters out here. I tell people we're a dime a dozen. But if you want to learn about a specific organization, that's where you have to go to a specific podcast, because they try to give their thoughts on them, because any of us can talk about WWE, any of us can talk about AEW, but if you're talking about the indies, then people are more likely to listen. People are more likely to, hey, I might check them out because they're talking about this. And that's where I see the business going. And I want it to continue, because as one of the things I love and I took as a kid and I take today, what I see in wrestling, I'm trying to make it better than I found it.
You've done a great job of that, too. Mark, 6 years from now, where are we at?
Well, I would have to agree with your statement there, Russ, about it would be nice to bring back just the 1 hour, because I'm also of the feeling less is more. And if it can be looked at properly by the people with the real stiff white collars, even in that 1 hour, they can still get the money, which is all they care about. But bring true enjoyment and fan. And if somebody can look back into history and see what worked and adapt as opposed to change, it's about it. Hopefully for the better.
Nice. Jonathan.
First off, within 6 years, I think Evan is going to get his EGOT. Beyond that, what I would love to see is, I think we're going to see a combination of consolidation, just kind of in that those second-tier wrestling promotions that we see. But I'm hopeful at the same time the promotions that kind of make it through the next few years are also going to do so stronger and in a better position where there's going to be more places for talent to work. So I would love to see AEW continue to gain strength. I would love to see TNA continue to be a viable destination for talent, whether it's affiliated with NXT or AEW or AAA or NJPW or anybody else or standing on its own. I'd like to see the NWA get more profile as well. I think the more spots there are for talent to apply their trade, the better. Look, I'm even going to take a contrary position, I imagine, and say I'm a fan of Juggalo Championship Wrestling. They've brought Vince Russo back to relevance, and frankly, anything that brings his kind of gonzo approach to wrestling storytelling, I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, we're living through, as we've all said, a period where silly sells. And really, for better or worse, Russo's stories are often silly and they draw eyeballs. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that I would also hope that when we talk about tribalism, at some point we all kind of grow up a little bit and start to realize that whether I particularly love WWE style or AEW style or NJPW or AAA or any wrestling across the world, or if I don't get it at all, that's fine. It's better to have more different products out there for people to enjoy. And if one doesn't happen to be my cup of tea, that's great. I hope somebody else likes it. And then I hope the guys who become stars there get to show me something in an environment that I can relate to. So that's kind of what I would love to see.
Well said.
Also, I want us to win an Emmy for this podcast.
Yeah. I think Canada is going to win a hockey championship before we get any kind of award. So
hey, the Jays got to the World Series last year. I'm still bitter over that last game.
and Ryan, your thoughts?
Man, I'm really going to sound like the doom and gloom guy because I would love all the stuff that you guys have said to happen, but there's one thing I think we all have to factor in when it comes to any form of media or entertainment, and that's AI. And in 6 years, it's so unpredictable now how it's going to have an effect on every industry, including professional wrestling. I think we're going to see some major changes, and as I said, nobody likes that. Unfortunately, technology doesn't stop for us, especially the older generations. And as I explained to somebody, because I'm in digital media and I make my livelihood, trying to stay one step ahead of AI now. As I told one of my friends who's been in the business 30 years like I have, I said, listen, this is sort of like the Ice Age. It's coming, and we're the dinosaurs. So, again, as opposed to things going backwards, unfortunately, I think we're going to move to more rapid fire. Things are going to get even faker, and it may even get to the point where we have fake characters interacting with real live characters, just like Hollywood movies, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit or something like that. Do I think that's beyond pro wrestling at this point? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I see that more likely happening than, unfortunately, going back to the traditional wrestling that we all love.
Why not all? Why one live one and one fake one? Why not both fake ones?
Cheaper. Why cheaper?
No, I've already
and they don't get hurt.
And I've
Just
seen,
Hulk Hogan main event WrestleMania 50.
Yeah, and I've seen on YouTube Shorts, them faking, stuff with, showing Andre the Giant up against, Cody Rhodes and stuff like that. Fake AI matches where, guys that obviously were dead long before. And of course, young fans look at it and go, oh, I didn't know Andre the Giant was still alive. So it's a scary thing. Sheldon, I think your audio's back, so why don't you give it one more shot? Oh, no. Sheldon, yeah.
Okay, everybody read Sheldon's lips.
Or Sheldon, you got to hold up a sign. You might have to,
Like Bob Dylan. Do the Bob Dylan deal.
Yeah.
Or I need to start talking, then he'll come in.
It'll come in and it'll interrupt you. So, hopefully
WrestleMania 50, Professor Bear against Sheldon. Stop interrupting me, match. Boom. Yes.
But my other prediction in 6 years is that AEW will make news by being the first federation to have more titles than actually wrestlers.
There you go.
It'll be the first Fed that everyone has a title, and there'll be a couple of extra titles lying around for fans to pick up when they come into the arena.
You're laughing, Russ. But if you put $1,000 cash in front of me, I could not name all the AEW champions, and I watch it all the time. That's how ridiculous it is.
Well, because probably while we're talking, they probably made another championship. While we're having this discussion, they probably created and eliminated a couple of titles while we've been talking. So, anyway, folks, let's wrap this up. I mean, it's been absolutely wonderful to have you guys. And to be honest with you, I would love to even talk for another hour over all this stuff, but I know you guys have stuff to do, and it's late on the East Coast and all that stuff. So why don't you guys just really quickly give plugs for your shows or anything else you'd like to tell fans about, and
all right.
We'll wrap
well,
this up.
After COVID,
there we go.
Independent. Hello. Yep. Oh, jeez.
Oh, yeah. Well, Sheldon.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Sheldon, move the antenna. Old school. Move the antenna. Yes.
I think TKO is.
Yeah.
You have to hit your monitor on the side.
That's right.
So Blair, would you like to promote your show real quickly?
Yeah, just real quickly, thank you again for inviting me on this episode. This is a who's who of podcasting and wrestling history and all that, so I really appreciate the invite. Just Wrestling with the 80s on YouTube or Wrestling with the 80s on Facebook. You can subscribe on YouTube and follow me on Facebook.
Wonderful. Benny.
Yeah, Monday night, 6 o'clock, True Crime with the Bad Girl, the Playa, and Dangerous Dave. Wednesday night, 7:30, When It Was Real with Nikita Brezhnikov, my wrestling podcast. And it's been an honor to be on this show with all these great guys. And, I mean, this is something, this is like auditing a course on wrestling from Harvard, like all these great wrestling minds talking.
It wouldn't be the same without your input on. Evan, go ahead, plug your books.
Sure. Wrestling Rings, Blackboards, and Movie Sets, 100+ stories about juggling careers as a wrestling agent, teacher, film producer. My new book, Grindhouse, Art House, and Wrestling Flicks, deep dive into movies in general, but wrestlers in movies and wrestling movies in particular. And check out ProWrestlingStories.com. Yours truly, the senior editor, and Wrestling Then and Now documentary, 350 Days documentary, etc., so on. And, I'm really grateful to all of you guys for your friendship and being part of this show, and for Russ doing this show, because I have no tech skills and I couldn't do it without Russ.
No, but we wouldn't be able to do the show also without the guests you've brought on and your input. And hey, sometimes just the fact that it's therapy session for you and I to talk about how we're feeling about wrestling, I couldn't last a week without it, and I haven't lasted a week without it. Professor Bear, talk about your excellent show.
Yes, my show is Bear's Thought, and my group is the Wrestling Society Network. We are, if you Google it, you can find me all over the place, and hopefully within the next 6 months, we will have our wrestling app out with some tremendous, hopefully great indie promotions that will do business with us. I think it's going to be for wrestling fans and for the love of wrestling. So, and I definitely want to thank everybody who's on the show, who is a great mind. It is such an honor to be in place with you all, and thank y'all so very much.
Love to do your show again. Sheldon, even though we have you on radio silence here, we want fans to check out his NECW Wrestling YouTube channel and to check out his books on Amazon. So you can look him up, and he has that series of books that have some very fascinating info and insights to wrestling. Even though it's fictitious, it goes through a lot of stuff that Sheldon observed in all the time that he was doing his promoting and everything like that.
And Russ, let me just add, I want to thank Professor Bear for being the center square. R.I.P. Paul Lind. Thank you.
Actually, over here I have Sheldon, so we'll see how it turns out.
I have Professor Bear in the center. Okay.
We'll see when it gets published. I think my one's the master one, so I think Sheldon gets the center square. Mark, quickly, anything that you want to promote?
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can go to the website insent.net. You'll see my productions on the Sheik, Wrestling's Greatest Villain, 2 DVD disc set, and its sequel, Battles, Bouts, and Brawls, The Story of Pro Wrestling, 2 DVD disc set. There are other items on there. Please, if you have the opportunity, go there. You may find things of interest. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure meeting and seeing you. Russ, Evan, thank you so much. And speaking of Evan, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy I've got this written by Evan. Go out. Go and get it. You won't regret it. If you enjoy wrestling, you enjoy films, Grindhouse, I'm glad I've got it. Believe me.
Thank you for your help with it. I appreciate it. He was a big part of it, Mark. Thank you.
Wonderful. Jonathan.
So I'm currently looking for a new home for any wrestling writing that I might be doing. But I did want to follow up on the plug for Sheldon's books. The Last Fall, The Family Business, After the Bell, Mad Dog's Tale as well, all of which are available on Amazon. On Amazon.ca, where I'm looking, they're only between $23.56 and $24.65. So a great read, all of which have tremendous star reviews as well. If you're a fan of wrestling, whether real or imagined, I think they're absolutely great. I say this because I'm a longtime fan of Sheldon's on social media. He's known for periodically offering advice to independent wrestlers and promoters just starting out. It's worth reading just for the really funny names he gives people, and also for some really sage and considered and compassionate advice in a business that really doesn't spotlight those virtues.
Mark, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot. One other individual that I would like to have noted and mentioned is Mark Bojan, sadly, who passed away. Tremendous individual, one of the true, in my opinion, one of the greats, and I hope of others when it comes to wrestling history, preserving, informing people. Mark Bojan.
Thanks for mentioning him.
Absolutely.
Okay, and Ryan, we'll wrap things up down at the corner square.
Well, guys, I'm still interested in pro wrestling, and I actually started my own digital media company. I'm looking to put together a series of verticals, different websites, and one of them is the sidearmor.com, which is sports and pro wrestling, and that's right now, it's sort of been a pet project for me, but it's growing rapidly, and we now have sponsors and advertisers, so that helps a lot. Jonathan, get a hold of me. If you're talking about doing some wrestling writing, because I'm looking for somebody. So just please check out the site, thesidearmor.com. I was a sidearm pitcher in high school, so that's where the name comes from. But other than that, Mitch, as always, Russell, I was so happy to hear from you that I haven't been on the show for a while, and it's always great to gather with you guys. And I was laughing earlier at Sheldon because I know what a great guy he was, and I was like, I know he's frustrated right now. And I was like, that's my friend over there. So I get to get the chance to kind of giggle a little bit about his frustration tonight. So anyway, guys, I am on Cardinals duty, and they're about to wrap up a win, so I've got to jump off here. But again, thank you to everybody. It's been an honor and a privilege to be here with all of you. Thank you.
And wow, that's basically the show for tonight. I just want to take a second out and just say, I never dreamed when I started this that 6 years later I'd have all these friendships with people that I so highly respect and people who have contributed so much I didn't pay you guys a dime, and you've given me $1 trillion worth of insight on professional wrestling. And I valued each and every one of your contributions to the show, every second of it. You just don't understand like what this show means to me. I don't know what my life would be without this show. And you've given me a reason to look forward to Sunday nights or Monday nights for 6 years. And it's all because you guys gave to me in a way without ever asking anything back. And you guys are good friends to me, you know, even though the majority of you I've never met in person. I want to thank you for that, because you're really all just wonderful, wonderful souls. And thank you so much for making this program the success that it's been. It just wouldn't be anything. It was just me and Evan just joining. After a while, I think you all would have gotten sick of just me and Evan kvetching about things back and forth. You need more than two old grumpy Jews to make a program work, you know?
That would be a good title for a show, Old Grumpy Jews.
Yeah, when we do a movie review show, I think that might be the title of it or something like that.
I think there's at least 4 of us here.
Yes, exactly.
Five of you include Herman.
We've got the old Jew quorum kind of thing going on here. Anyway, guys.
We've got a minion.
This has been a great show. I think this has been one of my favorite shows that I've ever done. I was looking forward to it so much, and I was not disappointed by everything you guys put forth today. And we're going to have you all back on the show one at a time, and hopefully, you know, see you around for year number 7, too.
And Russell, remember to click save.
Yeah, no, I'm going to save this one
right.
for sure. It's not, you know, we've had our technical difficulties before, but I'm making sure we all have a copy of this one, and I'm going to make sure everyone gets it. It's a very special show. Thank you, everyone. Good night. We'll see you all next week. Well, not everyone, but we will see you next week. Good night, everyone.
Good night, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.